Good evening and welcome to the November 16th, 2021 meeting of the Glendale City Council being called to order at 6:04. To help slow the transmission of COVID-19 and protect the health and safety of the community, City Council as well as board and commission meetings will continue to be closed to the public for in-person attendance. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of your homes to practice social distancing. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendale.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. For public comments and questions during this meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that agenda item is discussed. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Present.
Brotman,
Here.
Kasakian,
Here.
Najarian, here, and Mayor Devine.
Here. What's next, please?
Flag salute.
Let's see, Councilmember Kasakian, please.
Sure. Please place your right hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is one nation, indivisible.
Please remain standing for tonight's invocation. Heavenly Father, we pray that you will bless this meeting. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that we conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. This Thanksgiving, we thank you for the goodness of our people and for the spirit of justice that fills this nation. We thank you for our health, for our families, and for our work. Let your goodness flow throughout our hearts and hands as we reach out to one another in the full, true joy of Thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we take the next item, I just want to let the public know that item 8G has been pulled from the agenda. Thank you. And what's next, please? Report.
The agenda for the November 16, 2021 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on November 10th, 2021 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And the next item?
Next item is presentations and appointments. The regular Housing Authority and the City Council meeting for November 23rd, 2021 have been canceled. The next regular meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, November 30th, 2021.
Thank you. And next?
Next would be consent items, including the minutes. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before motion is proposed.
May I move?
I wanted to, just a second, I wanted to pull the item, and I don't have the number in front of me, on the
B,
urban
is it
forest
B?
grant.
B, it's B, 4B.
4B, yes.
Okay, do we have consent, or motion for the remainder of the calendar?
Yes, I would like to move the balance of the calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Devine.
Yes. Councilmember Brotman, B, Public Works.
Yeah, so,
Councilmember
Is-
Brotman, I would need to read this into the record.
oh, you're going to read it, okay.
Item 4.
Please, yes.
Item 4B, Public Works, regarding submittal of urban forest expansion and improvement grant application. 1, resolution authorizing the Director of Public Works or his designee to submit an application for funding from the Urban and Community Grant Program of the California Department of Forestry and Fire Prevention for the planting and care of 500 new trees in South Glendale. Thank you.
Okay, and if I could, I just pulled this, firstly, to give kudos to Lauren Click and Yasmin Imrani and the whole Public Works team on this. I've gone to them several times, many times, I think, asking, do you know about this grant? Do you know about that grant? And generally, the answer I get is, oh, yeah, we know about that grant. We're already working on it. So it's nice to see that you're on top of these things. And this is a great one. It's great to see that we're going to be, I guess, getting funds to plant 500 trees, right? That's the number.
Mayor Devine, member of City
Actually,
Council.
We're applying for a grant. It's for application for a grant.
Mayor Devine, may I suggest that we let Mr. Click provide a brief presentation so the audience
Yeah,
will hear
okay.
the details?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, good evening, Mayor Devine, members of City Council. This item would be a resolution requesting that council authorizes Public Works to submit a grant application to CAL FIRE for a program which would plant 500 trees and then water those weekly afterwards. So if this grant this resolution is approved and the grant is awarded to Public Works, then this planting would occur next year. The trees will be planted in South Glendale and then watered subsequently afterwards.
Okay, so I guess I was getting ahead of myself
Thank you.
there. But anyway, thank you for being on top of these things, and I'm looking forward to hopefully getting this grant approved and being able to implement that. And just one thing I noticed in the staff report, it said that, and we discussed this, regular planning efforts must not be supplanted by this project. And council, recently went through this discussion with you and agreed that we would, going forward, we would be increasing our regular schedule of planting. So I'm hoping that if we do get this grant, this is going to be on top of what council already indicated we want to see every year, even though I know we haven't appropriated the funding yet. But that was kind of the new baseline we provided, and I'm hoping that if we get this grant, it can then be incremental and additional on top of that. But thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes. Councilmember Opinion.
I mean, since item has been pulled, I want to, on page 2, item 4, since we have the expert here, I want to ask him that on page 2, item or number 4, it says, trees help to calm traffic, reduce crime when well kept. Can you tell me where you came up with this?
Mayor Devine, members of the City Council, Councilmember Agajanian. So in the last 20 years, a number of studies have actually tried to measure specifically how trees could provide benefits. And one of the interesting things they find was that well-kept trees in particular in these studies have reduced crime. There's one study out of Baltimore, for example, that showed that there was, if you plant 10% more trees on a block, they saw a 12% reduction in robbery, burglary, theft, shooting. And of course, there's still a lot of controls that they had to take in terms of what type of neighborhood they were in, what type of, whether that was a disadvantaged community or a community that was more controlled in terms of who could access it. But these studies are showing that trees have sort of a calming effect, and they should make it seem like the neighborhood is better kept and people care about the appearance and their neighbors there. So it's an exciting new field in forestry.
But is that in the same report says also helps reduce crime?
Yes.
Okay. This is good for the police station, maybe, to know. Police department to know. Thank you very much, and I will,
Yes, well, we'll all
Go ahead,
celebrate.
Okay, I'll move the item.
second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Devine.
Yes. Next item.
Next item is City Council staff comments.
Thank you. City council members, any comments?
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Kasakian.
well,
Please.
I know that we won't have a council meeting next week because of the holiday, and I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. But the comment I wanted to make is a resident had approached me and asked me about Beeline fare boxes, saying that on some of the Beelines, the fare boxes were not working, and on others there were, or maybe they weren't accepting fares. I want to bring that to staff's attention, and then perhaps maybe someone can tell us where we stand with, we are charging fares now again for the Beeline, correct? Is that accurate?
Madam Mayor, Member City Council, yes, that is accurate.
Okay. All right, so let's make sure that those fare boxes are functional. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Councilmember Brotman.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up something that, we've all been talking about here, but that is the spate of pedestrian accidents. Many of them recently, very serious accidents with people being sent to the hospital and with serious injuries. And in one case, we've had a person that was, that passed away after a hit and run. So 2 weeks ago, when we met here for our last regular meeting, we talked about this incident that occurred, I think it was on October 30th. There was a fatal hit and run at Glendale, right here, Glendale Avenue and Wilson, right near us. But since our last meeting, there have been, by my count, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pedestrian collisions, car pedestrian collisions, 7 in the last 2 weeks. We had, well, I won't go through them all, but San Fernando and Glendale was one that just occurred, that occurred on the 3rd. There were major injuries there. Central and Stalker, there was one. San Fernando near Los Feliz. Mountain and Verdugo, we heard about one there. Stalker and North Central. Again, actually, 2 of them there. And Glendale and California, 2 people were sent to the hospital there. And Brand and Wilson on Monday. So this is, I don't know, and I brought this up and I asked recently for a report because what I don't know is this, I mean, it feels like this is much more than we've ever seen before. But I'm not sure if it is or if it's just that people are tweeting this out. There's this new bot on Twitter that is tweeting out every time there's a collision. So I don't know if it's just a matter of me becoming aware of the frequency or is there something really different that's happening? I have read that this is a nationwide thing, and I know that the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, was recently talking about this. So I don't know what's going on. I think it's important that we acknowledge it. There are a lot of people in the community that say council doesn't care and council doesn't know, and you know, and I think it's important for people to recognize, which is why I keep bringing it up. I mean, we are all concerned, and we are all paying a lot of attention to this. We've done a lot of things. I mean, we have a lot of irons in the fire right now. We recently adopted a very good pedestrian plan, and anybody that's listening to this, I strongly encourage you to read it. It's very good. We're working on an updated bike plan. I know staff is working on putting together a Vision Zero task force. And there's a lot of other stuff. Glendale Police Department has beefed up its patrols and has been giving quite a number of citations. And recently, when council met to discuss our priorities, we identified mobility and specifically traffic safety as one of our top 4 priorities for the coming year. So we care about this. We're paying attention to this. I think maybe what we need to do is more communication to the public, because I don't think the public necessarily knows what we're doing. But you know, more communication to the public, and I would like us to consider whether we can do some kind of an awareness campaign. I'm under no illusion that exhortations are going to change ingrained behavior, but I think you know, it could at the margin make some difference, and I think we need to get the word out there. I understand that years ago, I think Councilmember Kasakian was probably telling me this, years ago we used to put like a smashed up truck or smashed up vehicle on
along
median
Glen
strip.
Oaks, around other medians,
where was
yeah.
it? On
We've had in various parts of the
very,
city.
you know, I think maybe we need to start doing some stuff like this, because this just feels like an epidemic to me. It feels like a public health emergency, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can and that the public is aware of what we're doing. And lastly, I would just say, you know, we have this great pedestrian plan. I don't think have a concrete implementation plan, and I would like to see us work on that, because some of these accidents occurred in intersections where the pedestrian plan has called out for traffic calming, has called out for things like getting rid of left turn pockets and doing, you know, what do you call those?
Curb extensions.
Curb extensions and things like that. So I think that we should identify really some of the low-hanging fruit, or at least some of the, that's not the right word, some of the most critical intersections, and put together a plan and start, you know, do the engineering work, even if we're going to get the budget for it next fiscal year, but start doing the engineering work so that we can be ready to implement some of these, because this is really a very serious situation.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I would echo that. I think that we do need to let the public know what we're working on as a city organization, as a council, what we've committed to. But I do also feel that there is an increase in some inattentive drivers, people who happen to be on their cell phone. This is all anecdotal and just from my own personal experience of driving through the city, but I think all of us here on the council drive through the city quite a bit. And there is certainly a lot more careless driving and ignoring. I don't know whether it's the post or still COVID anxiety that is on people's minds. But yes, we should let folks know what we're working on. But I think that we also need some amped up enforcement. I think that we need to focus on that. And the message needs to go out that Glendale is not a place where if you're in a vehicle, you can bend the rules, break the rules, and that we take following the rules of the road very seriously. And as Councilmember Brotman mentioned, there's been a number of incidents, but I can tell you that at least in the last 12 months between Burbank and Glendale, we've had some incidents with some very serious injuries as well, which we hadn't had for some time. So I will welcome a report as to what the issue is with this Twitter bot. Because I went on there and I started following it, and it reports it from all over LA County. It's not just Glendale. Obviously, the ones in Glendale keep coming up in our feeds because they keep tagging the council members. But yes, I do think that we need some heavier enforcement, even though it may upset a lot of people.
I know. Madam Mayor, if I may,
Lonnie?
say a couple of words in response.
Sure, yes, please.
Obviously, we as staff are equally, if not more, concerned about the number of recent collisions that happened. But like Councilmember Brotman and Kasakian mentioned, this is not unique to Glendale. Obviously, that doesn't, I'm not making that as an excuse. What we have seen in the past, I think the number of these collisions go up on a cyclical basis. We've gone through a number of education campaigns, and I think that has helped in the past. So once we're done with that campaign, we've seen a positive impact in lessening the number of these collisions. And then once that wanes and people forget, we need to restart the campaign again, awareness campaign. That goes along education, the 3 E's that we talk about. Education is very important, and obviously we're going to focus on that in the near future. Engineering is the other E. And like Councilman Brotman mentioned, the recently council-adopted pedestrian plan is a comprehensive work that we will use to come up. The Public Works Department is working on a plan to see where and when we can implement some of these recommendations. Obviously, we can't do everything at the same time. There's budget constraints, but we will look at the corridors, the intersections that require at least have a high foot traffic areas that's going to require more focus. And then there's enforcement, additional enforcement that the Councilmember Kasakian and you, Councilmember Brotman, mentioned. So all of those three together, we need to rejuvenate, and we need to get back in implementing some of those engineering measures as well as enforcement. And we will bring a report back as to where we stand with those three efforts.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Galani and council members. I also want to say, as a former educator, you know, some people are visual learners. They don't learn by hearing or word of mouth. They're visual learners. And so I would suggest that perhaps the news press, Glendale News Press, could start running some articles on educational driving habits or about these accidents, how they can be prevented. A PSA perhaps on our GTV6, if they, I'm sure they have one that's at the ready, that they can start broadcasting on safe driving. So that those residents that are not, that are visual learners can actually see what's going on and see what the impact is on people that are victims, that are the the ones that are hurt by these drivers that are breaking the rules. And maybe we'll even get to one of those, and they can see and say, well, maybe I better watch what I'm doing. So I would make that suggestion too. And I thank staff, because I know that you all care about this as well. And I'm sure that I think the engineering is going to be a key component here. So I hope that we will carry through with that part of the prevention and safety program. Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Anyone? Yes.
Yeah, let me add my voice, because
Okay, please.
apparently,
Councilman.
some in the community think that if you don't actively voice your support for traffic safety, that you are against traffic safety. In fact, I was working on traffic safety in the city in 1996 as a member of the Transportation and Parking Commission, where we, over an extended period of time, developed the very first traffic calming toolkit, which makes available to communities some of the traffic calming devices, measures, speed humps, stripes, etc. It continued. I mean, it's really quite a long history of what the city has done. People perhaps aren't aware that with the help of our Transportation and Parking Commission, that we enlisted Cal Berkeley traffic experts, along with the State Office of Traffic Safety, to come into Glendale. We were one of only 2 cities in the entire state that received special training for our traffic engineers and our planners, and in some cases our law enforcement officers. I see Fred Zoravand in the background. I think he's very familiar with that. And it continued from there, where we tried innovative crosswalk measures, fluorescent flags that could be raised to give pedestrians an extra measure of safety. On the Metro Board, I've worked hard to direct millions of dollars to the city of Glendale for traffic safety measures, including active transportation. And it goes on and on. I don't think we need to get into that, but I think we should look and see what we have tried before. Look at the measures we have tried, and perhaps make a decision as to what has succeeded and not. It has included enforcement. It has included engineering. It has included education. All these things, and they've worked at times. And as the city manager said, there is a return that is achieved, but after so many months, the drivers revert to their poor driving habits. So I think it's important, as we look forward to see what we can do, I think it's also very important, as important, to look back and see what we have done, what has succeeded, and decide with that what perhaps the best next steps are for us, whether it's in terms of seeking funding, whether it's in terms of educational, whether it's in terms of boosting the police force. Not everyone's in favor of boosting the police force. As we know, there's a lot of critics lately for increasing enforcement. But if that's something that works, then that's something we should be able to try. So let's deal with this perhaps I guess my only point is, let's deal with this as a comprehensive issue. Look at where we've come from, what has succeeded, what's going to be available to us in all 3 of those E's, the education, enforcement, and engineering, and take our steps. I'm going to say Virej Agajanian's name, because Mr. Agajanian, if you don't say you're for traffic safety, there are those that are going to say you're not for traffic safety, unfortunately. But we're all very much concerned about this. We all get the emails of the incidents that occur. Some of the victims we're familiar with, others not. But everyone on council and everyone in city leadership is concerned about this. Let's not try and peel us apart and have us at odds with each other as to who screams, "I'm for traffic safety," the loudest. We're all in this. It's a team effort. And it's a community effort that extends to the entire community. Drivers, pedestrians, and the like, and visitors to our city as well. So perhaps if staff keeps that in mind as they follow the clear direction that has been issued by my colleagues, we'll be off on a good foot. Thank you,
Points
ma'am.
well taken. Thank you. Councilmember Agajanian, did you want to chime in?
No, you
You're not
guys said
accused
it
of
all,
not being
so
against-
I thank you. Everything has been said, so I'm okay.
Okay. All right, okay, thank you. All right, what's next, please?
Next is community event announcement, 3-minute portion. I do have 4 callers on the line right now, 3 actually.
Okay. Okay, let's hear from the callers.
James DeCarli, you have 3 minutes. James, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is James DeCarli. I'm an equestrian, a business owner, and part of Save Glendale Riverside Rancho. I would like to bring awareness of a white paper and call to action that we submitted back in early of 2021. To date, we have not heard of the status of any status, and we are, hold on. Are you able to hear me okay? Because I'm getting a lot of static.
Yes, go ahead.
So today we have not heard of any status. As you are aware of, this request was based on safety and liability concerns that were supported by evidence-based research and risk assessments gathered by the Riverside Rancho Town Hall meeting. To this date, there has not been any dog kennels within the equestrian zone. As you're aware, from this white paper, dog kennels are generally not used to being around horses, and this puts them very easily into predatory mode. As an example, one of our staff members recently was attacked by an unleashed dog that got away from its owner. She is a 40-year veteran equestrian, and she was bucked off and she was injured. So this is something that's very real that needs to be addressed. Another concern of ours is a city council member informed us that the property owner at 1900 Riverside Drive plans to develop the property for kennels. But interesting today, one of our staff was informed by Philip Lazenfante, Director of Community Development, who indicated there has not been any permits, plans, or applications for this property. Kennels is a public safety concern. This call to action also supports Section 30.15.040, Part B, subsection 1 of the Commercial Equestrian Zoning Code that ensures that land uses in the zone are not operated in such a manner that causes detrimental effect on adjacent activities to protect the health and safety of the public. We are continuing to request that City Council make a motion to immediately place this call to action on the agenda for discussion. Also, I would like to make a note, as an injury epidemiologist, we have also, regarding traffic safety issues, we have had 2 horse incidences where one horse had been put down from a driver driving too fast on Riverside Drive, and one rider also got bucked and injured as well. Those drivers drove off. There was no ID information, so police could not do anything. So education, as well as important, and education and enforcement is vital. Thank you very much.
Jim, thank you.
Tony Passarella. Tony, you're live. You have 3 minutes, Tony. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, viewing public. To add to the traffic thing, I got hit 3 times in the last year and a half. So the problem is congestion and distracted drivers. Anyway, I've stayed away from this subject. You guys haven't been talking about it, so I've just stayed away. But now, when these pop-up back station goes up, they're on Central, and I want to talk about the children being vaccinated. By the way, let me give you the definition of pandemic. Webster's #2 definition: an outbreak of sudden, rapid spread, growth, and development. There's no pandemic anymore, people, especially with the children. They did a study in the UK, 99.997 recovery rate for people under 25, which is 2 in a million. So there's no pandemic. I noticed on the Glendale.gov site, you link to the CDC. So, I'd like to also link to the CDC right here. Put up a slide if you would. It's the VAERS Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. Oh, that's very clear. I didn't think it was going to be that clear. That's great. 857,000 reports, 17,600 deaths, 86,000, what is that there, hospitalizations, 94,000 urgent care visits, 130,000 doctor visits, 7,700 anaphylaxis, 10,465 Bell's palsy. So there you go, right from the CDC. That's good, Arm. Thank you. Glendale.gov. Thank you for that. So the children are being vaccinated now at these pop-up clinics. And pick your poison. They offered all three. I was there for 45 minutes. It was a utter failure, basically. Only the COVID cult parent brought their 4 children while I was there for 45 minutes, so that didn't work. Let me tell you what they added to the Pfizer shot, which was not in any of the 1, 2, or the booster shots. It's called tromethamine. It's basically a heart attack drug. They give it to people that have had heart attacks. Let me just list the possible side effects. Now, this is in the 5 to 11-year-old vaccine from Pfizer. It says use with care in children. So the side effects: hives, itching, red, swelling, blistered or peeling skin, fever, wheezing, tightness of the chest or throat, trouble breathing, swallowing or talking, swelling of the mouth, face, lips, tongue, or throat, dizziness, headache, oh my God, feeling sleepy.
Tony,
weak.
thank you. Your 3 minutes is up, Tony.
It can't be 3 minutes, man.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, well, I had a whole bunch more here, but
Thank you,
time ran
Tony.
out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next caller.
Miss Valentine, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, good evening. I didn't realize today was Tuesday. Yes, the letter to Chevy Chase Mile did come about that plant, methane gas Shoal Canyon plant. So Los Angeles, when you speak of LA, you think of Griffith Park and the observatory. When we will be speaking about Glendale, standing on the Hyperion Bridge, we will say, oh, that's the Glendale dump. Okay, that's one thing. But I missed 4G. I'm curious what AB 361 stands for. It says teleconference meetings are approved, but not any kind of action or development or building or anything else that the public should be. The public is locked out for the next 30 days, and it's been locked out for a whole year, 2020. So is that, I don't know, I'll have to check this out. So I don't want the city to prevent, to be the city of Glendale be sold out without public knowing it. And then what else? I just overheard about a horse. Oh my God, if one horse is in an accident, that equals 10 times car accidents. It has to be taken seriously. So that's all I wanted to say. But I will be back for action item, if you allow me, Mr. Najarian. Action item A, E, and F. I have a question. I'm a foreigner. I need a little bit of explanation. That's all. Nothing else. You're doing okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ms. Valentine. Next.
Elizabeth Bohr, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council, for this opportunity to speak. I'm speaking tonight about the future use or intent to use property at 1900 Riverside Drive. I think a former speaker just spoke to this. I'm just basing all of the information I've heard about it on, rumors and Facebook postings, so none of that is reliable. But I do want to say that as being an equestrian and a risk management person, I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that for any future plans that you might authorize, as the City of Glendale and the lead agency, that you take into consideration that any future use inconsistent with or in conflict with equestrian activities may result in potentially significant negative impacts. I focus on a lot of CEQA issues and, the Environmental Quality Act, and I am concerned about potentially significant negative impacts to neighboring residences, businesses, and regional recreation, in particular the equestrians. I don't know what the future plan is, but I do hope that the city going forward is very careful about monitoring disassembly, destruction, and demolition on the property. I witnessed some going on kind of this weekend and late last week. We want to make sure that everything's being done, complying with the proper permits, and that any environmental review that needs to be done is properly done. Some of the areas where there's potentially significant negative impacts include noise levels, increased traffic, and disruption to Griffith Park trail access. That Allen Avenue there is a critical hub for horses getting from the urban areas into the park. So even if the area proposed use or activity is allowed under current zoning, I would like to point out that potentially significant impacts may trigger the need for environmental review, and I don't want that to be bypassed. I have submitted a request for personal notice pursuant to CEQA 15072 and 15082 to the Glendale City Attorney, City Clerk, and Economic Development Department, requesting personal notice of any proposal by the City of Glendale to adopt environmental documentation on this property. Some of the information that I might be interested in is any negative declaration, initial studies, mitigated negative declarations, and any categorical exemptions or preparation of any AIR. So, it's just important that we don't just bypass the environmental regulations around this property just because it might be zoned for whatever the proposed use is. We appreciate your diligence and assistance preserving this Glendale Riverside Rancho. It's really important that we keep the equestrians safe and that the access to the park be preserved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller. One more.
Madam Mayor, that was the last caller.
Last one? Okay, thank you very much. All right then, what's next?
Next would be 8 action items. 8A, Information Services Department regarding approval of master purchase agreement with Motorola Solutions Incorporated. 1, resolution to dispense with competitive bidding and authorize the city manager or his designee to execute a master purchase agreement with Motorola Solutions Incorporated for all purchases of proprietary systems, equipment, software, and services through December 31st, 2026 with 1 5-year renewal option.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Mayor City Council, I'm just going to turn this over to Jason Bradford, our Chief Information Officer, to provide you a presentation on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Galanian. Good evening, Mayor Devine, members of the council. The item for your consideration tonight is a renewal of our master purchase agreement with Motorola. By way of background, over the last 20 years, we have built out a robust multi-agency radio system that is highly available and highly reliable, that is used every day for 911 emergency dispatch by our police and fire departments, and also by our field crews to maintain and support critical infrastructure by GWP, Public Works, as well as our field crews for Parks and Rec and community development. Currently, the City of Glendale and all of the ICI system members operate radio systems based on Motorola proprietary technologies, so there are no other providers for the core infrastructure. The master purchase agreement enables the city to sole source its purchases to Motorola and provides the city a single document governing all procurements. The agreement also allows us to aggressively negotiate discounts to the best of our ability and issue purchase orders on an as-needed basis. There are no minimum spending or purchase commitments associated with the master purchase agreement, and of course, all purchases made under the MPA, under the master purchase agreement, are subject to the appropriation limits that are approved by council during the annual budget process. For non-proprietary infrastructure components, when we don't have to buy Motorola products, we don't. We go and competitively bid those items. For example, we recently went to competitively bid the fire department mobile radios, and we went with a different product and will continue to do so. In conclusion, we have a very robust countywide radio system that works and works very, very well. And I'd say this is a great example of local agencies working together to leverage their investment in their respective radio systems for the common goal, which is interoperability communications countywide. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions, comments, motion?
I would like to move
Madam Mayor, before we move, I do have a caller. It's Ms. Valentine for
Oh.
item 80.
All right, thank you. That's right, she said she had a question. Go ahead.
Ms. Valentine, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, I just needed to clarify. So the Motorola agreement has ran out. What date? And this is this a renewal? The 5-year one 5-year renewal? Is that what's happening? I just wondered if it ran out, or are you just rushing this through? That's all. Thank you.
Jason?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, our current agreement expires December 31st of this year, and this is a new agreement effective January 1 that will run for 5 years through
Thank you.
December 31 of 2026.
All righty, thank you. Motion?
Yeah, I would like to move the item 8A, please.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Devine.
Yes. Next item? Thank you.
Next item is 8B, Public Works regarding professional services agreement, PSA for Glendale Pavement Management Program, PMP. One, motion authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute an amendment to PSA number 8000855 with Transmap Corporation, Transmap, for the PMP update increasing the about by $99,404.22 plus a 10% contingency of $9,940.42 and extending the PSA duration to June 30th, 2024.
Thank you. Mr. Galania?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, the Public Works Department had hired Transmap Corporation to conduct a study and complete a comprehensive payment management program that was presented to City Council a few months ago. And that program requires updating every 3 years to be eligible for Federal Highway Administration grant funds. And as such, the department is requesting to renew their existing contract for $99,404 to be able to provide an update to this PMP, Payment Management Program, and requesting to enter into an amendment in that amount. If you have any other if you have any questions, either I or Mr. Imrani will be happy to answer. And we have a caller, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. I think it's Ms. Valentine again. I think she said. Let's hear the caller, please.
Herbert Milano, you have 3 minutes. Herbert, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Members of the City Council, for many years, I have been following the reports presented through the Pavement Management Program. And these reports come out every 5 years. And there seems to be a discrepancy between what the report tells you you need and what the City Council actually approves in terms of funding. If you take a look at the statistical section of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, you will see that in the last 10 years, the city has barely reconstructed 2 miles out of the 360 miles of roadways that we have. And it has been my contention that the city needs to put these type of actions in context of the need that the city has. I've sent out countless of times, numerous pictures of severe deterioration of the streets in my neighborhood, that is the 134 freeway. Potholes as big as 2 feet wide, the deterioration conditions on central, south of Colorado. It's all over the place. We are at a 70th percentile in terms of the conditions of the roadways, which means that we have about 100 miles of roads in need of reconstruction. the city needs to budget at least $15 million a year, and yet I don't see that coming through during the budget study session. I don't see year after year that the roads conditions overall are commensurate with the type of budget overall that you have. And I would like to see, and I would love to see the city council discuss this issue, which has been an issue for me for many decades now. And I want to hope that the city will find time to evaluate one more time how it is that you're going to budget appropriately to reconstruct these roads. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. Okay, any questions, comments, council?
May I move the item 8B?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman?
Yes.
Kasakian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
And Mayor Devine.
Yes. Next item.
Next item is C, Public Works regarding purchase order contract for two-use 2008 auto car expediter, Hail Rapid Rail CNG side loading refuse trucks. One resolution dispensing with competitive bidding and authorizing the Deputy Director of Finance Purchasing to execute a purchase order contract with King Motors for the purchase or two-use 2008 auto car expediter, Hail Rapid Rail CNG side loader refuse trucks plus a 5% contingency. 2, resolution of appropriation from the Refuse Disposal Fund to provide adequate funding for this recommended procurement.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, I'm going to turn this one over to Yazdan Amrani to present.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. We have a aging fleet in terms of our trash trucks and our side loaders, and we have put in a requisition to purchase some new ones to replace some of the aging equipments that we have. However, there is a backlog, and these have to be reconstructed on an each case-by-case basis, which would take probably a year to accomplish. Therefore, we are requesting the dispensing with competitive bidding and authorizing us to purchase these two used side loaders as a backup for our fleet, and also for the fact that we've done a study and we are actually reducing the total number of hours that our trash truck drivers are spending on the road. We're increasing the number of the routes that we have from 18 to about 22 to 23. And these are going to be shorter routes, so it's going to be a decrease in overtime. These vehicles, the number of vehicles that we currently have are just barely enough to keep us on the road. So we need some backup in case a couple of them break down. And these are great finds that we were able to find. Basically, our staff has inspected them. They are in very good shape and would be a great addition to our fleet. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Yeah, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I do have a couple questions for Mr. Imrani on this. So I think in the staff report, you said we have 24 of these side loading trucks now, and we have orders out to replace 11 of them. Is that right?
That is
they're
correct.
CNG. Is that
That
correct?
is correct.
When do the others need to get replaced?
We basically program these depending on the funding that we have on an annual basis to try to chip away at the old ones. We have some new ones mixed in with the fleet that we have, but we focus on the kind of trying to get rid of the oldest ones that are frequently in the shop and off the road. But we are trying to eventually replace most of the ones that are circa 2008 or even older.
Okay, and you probably know where I'm going with this, which is electric operated trash trucks. And so, because I saw I was reading this report and I saw, you're getting these used vehicles, and you said you got a good find, and I was wondering whether we could use this strategy more to be able to buy time on some of the 11 that we're going to be getting, so that we can, not make an investment in so many new CNG trucks when we know that the electric vehicles are kind of coming onto the market. They may not quite be ready yet, but they're on their way, and I worry about us dropping, a lot of money on 11 new trash trucks, and then we're going to have those. I don't know what the life cycle is, but I'm sure we would have those for, a good 5 to 10 years, So I would just like to ask, you to think about that. Is there a strategy that we can kind of extend the timeline that we have so that we can take advantage of those electric vehicles when they become really, ready for prime time?
Absolutely. And to answer your question, we are currently undertaking an electrification study, which is going to look at all of our fleet and make recommendations not only on the purchase of sedans and regular duty vehicles, but also looking at heavy duty trucks such as trash trucks, and looking at the technology that's down the road, plus the electrical infrastructure that we need for that to happen. So we are going to look at all of them and then make the procurement decisions accordingly.
Okay, just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll move the item.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman?
Yes.
Kasakian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Mayor Devine.
Yes. Next item?
Next item would be community development regarding Space 134 freeway ramps preliminary engineering study. One, motion to note and file Space 134 freeway ramps preliminary engineering study and directing staff on next steps of the Space 134 freeway ramps project.
Mr. Galanian?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Member City Council, I'm going to invite Bradley Calvert, Assistant Director of Community Development, to present this item that he calls a moonshot, I believe.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, what we'd like to do is give you an update on the Space 134 study. Essentially, we went through a pre-engineering study, most recently based on a grant we were awarded back in 2018-19. We are seeking direction from council on what the next steps should be for the project. This pre-engineering study delivered us results for potential improvements to SR 134. That was per some of the direction from council the last time we had visited and given an update and accepted this grant. Council was interested in seeing how we could improve conditions on State Route 134, particularly some of the freeway on and off ramps. So that was one of the main focuses of this work, but it also looked at the viability of the park, the Cat Park construction, and then what some of these costs could look like in order to complete the first phase of the Cat Park, but also the improvements recommended for State Route 134. What we'd like to also do is, as city manager had acknowledged, this project is a moonshot. It is very ambitious. It is very expensive. It can also take a lot of time. We are going to discuss at the end of this presentation a potential additional alternative that we could consider as part of the direction that would not preclude the ability to advance the Cat Park vision, but could provide some sort of interim improvements that could improve walkability, bicycling across 134, and reconnecting the north side of town to the north side or the south side in a little more of a better fashion that improves the conditions for anyone who may not be driving. So that's really the future direction that we'll be looking for. This project has been guided by a vision plan. It was included as an exhibit as part of the council packet. It really includes two distinct segments. There is a downtown park and a neighborhood park. In the background image that you see here, this is what would be considered as that kind of phase one downtown. This would be that active park, which would include a transit center to it, but would be considered kind of the heart of open space in downtown. This graphic shows that broken in kind of two segments, the neighborhood park being that green area that's highlighted, a little more passive recreation. But in total, this comes up to about 1.25 miles of space that could cover the 134. Another example, looking more at the neighborhood park section, this would be going east of Central and Brand. Now, the scope of work for this portion of the study really looked at opportunities to improve traffic flow on the 134. That includes on and off ramps, particularly at Central and 134. This would create opportunities to improve the relationship between our surface streets, traffic that may be queuing at those on and off ramps as well. It also assess the strengths and weaknesses of a freeway lid park, of the CAP park itself. We also asked for a parking analysis, understanding that this may be a significant draw. This may be an activity hub for downtown. We want to understand what that would do to parking in downtown. And really the goal here was to be in preparation of an EIR to meet some of Caltrans requirements, kind of base mapping existing conditions, and that is where some of these ideas were birthed in regards to improving the ramps at 134. What I'd like to do from here, though, is turn it over to our consultant team. Tony Kirby from Arup is here to go through kind of the technical aspects of this. And then at the end, I will conclude with what this additional alternative could consider for future direction. So, Tony, I turn this over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Bradley, and good evening, everybody. So just to start, Arup was brought on board by the city to build upon a vision plan that had preceded this that Bradley just touched on. And the primary focus as we started the exercise was really to look at the requirements and the right-of-way requirements, particularly along the SR 134, and to look at what Caltrans had planned for this corridor of the freeway. And it became quickly apparent that there was a transportation concept report, a TCR, along this stretch of the freeway that reserves the right to expand the freeway lanes for HOV vehicles and the like, and transit potentially in the future, and actually widen the freeway within the existing right-of-way. So everything we do, and what I'm going to talk about here, is framed around trying to accommodate the future needs of this corridor from Caltrans. Now, when we started to look at the on and off ramp improvements and the wider traffic improvements, the first thing that became apparent was the weaving of traffic between Pacific and Central, particularly at peak hours, with people trying to enter the freeway from Pacific and exit onto Central in the morning, particularly in the morning, actually. And that weaving motion is actually inherently unsafe. So one of the things that was conceived by the design team was to grade separate the on and off ramps here, which we call braided ramps in engineering, to remove that conflict and to enhance safety at peak hours. And I think, Bradley, there's a second slide here that visualizes, this is the existing condition looking east onto the off ramp at onto Central. From Pacific, sorry, I may have said Century in the past, Central I meant. And a braided ramp basically grade separates the on and off ramps where there's conflicts, allowing safe passage of traffic over and below one another, and removing that at-grade weaving. So that was one of the recommendations that came out of developing a CAP park, particularly phase one, which we'll come on to in a second, is to grade separate those ramps and remove that conflict there at peak hours, and provide enhanced storage queuing length on those ramps during peak hours. Next slide, please.
Excuse me.
And then we also looked at the other end of the corridor and identified some potential improvements within and this is it's kind of independent of doing the CAP, although it would have bucked the eastern end of the CAP if it was ever built to its full extent at Glendale Avenue and Monterey Street. And this is an area that gets quite congested again at peak hours, and we believe there's a number of improvements that can be done and accommodated within the existing right-of-way here, including potentially the removal of the HOV lane onto the eastbound on-ramp at Glendale Avenue, providing 2 clear lanes of traffic access there and enhanced storage and queuing. And then similarly, by displacing and relocating the ramp meter at the Monterey Street on-ramp heading west, provides the opportunity to provide a longer length of 2 lanes, providing enhanced queuing and storage on that on-ramp as well, and improving safety potentially as well. And then there were a number of restriping and dedicated left turn lanes identified at Glendale Avenue and Monterey Street, which would enhance passage through this wider intersection, and particularly the passage from Glendale Avenue onto Monterey Street and onto the on-ramp heading west. Next slide. So we, a sub-consultant to our KOA, undertook quite a detailed traffic study, which included looking at baseline traffic counts across a number of intersections across the city, not just at the freeway corridor and the on and off ramp locations, but also on the city street to understand the conditions there. And as I've heard earlier in this meeting, there's obviously issues with traffic congestion and safety in the city. So we wanted to record the benchmark conditions, if you like. And then the study looked at a number of things that I've just discussed there. It also looks at providing a frontage road between Brand Boulevard and Glendale Avenue and taking out the existing on-ramp at Brand Boulevard heading east. So all of these things were considered and then summarized in a high-level traffic study. An alternative one here is the braiding of the ramps at Pacific and Central, and the provision of a new frontage road between Brand and Glendale Avenue. And that results in a fewer number of existing intersections within the city grid and the city fabric performing at a level of service at E or F, which is actually quite a low level of performance, indicates congestion. Level A, B, and C is what we want to see, but nevertheless, by doing the braided ramps and the frontage road, then we do reduce the number of impacts and the traffic conditions at those at many locations, and it reduces the queuing to under 85% of the ramp capacity. So the ramp capacities at Central Avenue particularly, it provides more dedicated storage and queuing length, enhancing safety, but also enhancing traffic flow. And then alternative 2 in the lower left table there was the suite of improvements within the right-of-way at Glendale Avenue that had a broadly comparable or slightly improved level of service compared to the existing conditions across a range of time periods. So we looked at what's happening today, but also the traffic conditions projected in 2050 for this analysis. But the main benefit, I think, of the Glendale Avenue improvements is the decreased ramp queuing coming onto the freeway at Monterey Street heading west, and improving the storage and the queuing capability there, and removing some of the congestion that backs up onto the city streets just off the freeway. So all in all, whilst these are congested areas, there are improvements and enhancements to be realized through the scheme of highway improvements, which were part of the study of looking at implementing a cap structure here. Next slide, please. So the cap park itself, we were tasked with taking the vision plan on and looking at how we could program a cap, how it would be constructed. And fundamentally, we focused most of the effort on the phase 1 cap between Central and Brand Boulevard in the downtown area. This would be the piece, if this moves forward, that would be constructed first and would have the most community amenities and benefits. But we also had to look at this in the context of what's going on with Metro's BRT system from North Hollywood to Pasadena here, and then the planned Glendale streetcar system, which is planned to run on Brand Boulevard in this area of the city. So these transit system improvements that are being advanced by the city and by Metro were part and parcel of the thinking of the programming of what this cap park could look like should it be realized. And in the baseline alternative that's shown here, we have assumed that the BRT runs north-south on Central and the Glendale streetcar system north-south on Brand, and that the cap provides the amenities provided in the vision plan, including a lot of open space and fitness trails, but some small buildings and cafe opportunities, but ultimately promotes a linkage across the park to move between transit systems and also promotes a pedestrian linkage across Sanchez and Good, which are important in terms of pedestrian safety and connectivity to activate the CAP. Next slide, please. This one just shows some of the overlays that were considered by Arup and the wider design team in what the CAP park should be. So building on the existing condition, which is a freeway set down in a trench condition, building the CAP structure, which is wholly an engineering project, how you support that, how you build it and maintain traffic flow, and then adding on layers of connectivity, the two transit systems, walkability, bicycle connections, how they can link back into the existing city fabric, reconnect the city to this CAP park. And then we also looked at the planting opportunities and the ecology. We studied the stormwater implications of the discharges ultimately to the LA River and how we could manage some of those at source, but also the type and the size of planting that could be accommodated in a superstructure that has limited depth and has to provide the headroom to the Caltrans operated freeway below. So all of these things were layered into the thinking in coming up with the concepts for the CAP park, particularly phase 1. Next slide, please. And then the transit scenarios, which I've just touched on, we had two scenarios. We have the baseline, which is the upper left image with the Metro BRT running in blue there on Central, and on the alignment currently that looks favourable, and then the city streetcar system being planned to run up and down Brand Boulevard. But we looked at integrating stations on both systems physically into the CAP park so that there's a benefit, and the CAP park actually on either end becomes a transit hub for changing modes or for getting off and enjoying the park before returning to wherever you came from. We did also look at an alternative scenario which puts both transit systems on shared lanes or in shared lanes on Brand Boulevard, which from a transportation planning point of view, this kind of optimizes the two systems. It shares stations. It's not easy in terms of you would lose more traffic lanes for cars. So this is an alternative rather than the baseline. But it does offer the opportunity to consolidate the public transportation infrastructure. And we thought that with this option that the CAP park in phase 1 would actually need to be extended about 30 feet to the east of Brand Boulevard to provide a proper consolidated station at the CAP park with all the required circulation. And then there's a couple of visuals of each of the options shown below of the street running BRT and the metro systems in the vicinity of the park and some of the signage that you would likely see here. Next slide, please. And then part of the study was to do with looking at how this could be constructed. This is a live, busy freeway corridor. It's a vibrant downtown center. You can't close either to build the CAP in phase 1. So the series of diagrams I'll walk through here are just how the design team envisaged the freeway CAP being built. So in stage 1, there are areas on either side of the freeway that are currently embankment, that are undeveloped as freeway. In the ultimate configuration of the freeway in 2035, Caltrans kind of holds the right or reserves the right to expand the freeway out into those areas for HOV lanes and transit infrastructure, not for more vehicle general purpose lanes. So there's an opportunity to remove those embankments in stage 1, build a temporary pavement on the fringes or the shoulders of the freeway, and that allows you then the time to start to put the superstructures in place, the supporting structures at either side up against Good and Sanchez in those vicinities to build the edge supports to a cap or a lid structure. And then once that is done, there would need to be a central support in stage 2 on the right-hand side that we could shift traffic to the new shoulders that are provided on the outside. So we take a lane either side on the freeway up towards the center of the freeway to build the column or the bent structures that are needed to support the cap at mid-span down the center of the freeway. So we could potentially do that whilst losing or not losing traffic lanes, because we've moved traffic into paved areas that are within the Caltrans right away on the fringes. Next slide. And then the final piece would be putting in the lid or the superstructure to form the cap that will hold the park above. And whilst this could mostly be done while maintaining traffic running below the structure, there would be intermittent or localized closures in order to erect the falsework, the supporting framework that will hold the cast in place concrete structure up. So as that falsework is put into place in the temporary condition, we looked at potential detour routes, likely for a weekend at a time, for assembling the falsework and taking it down, whereas the main construction would happen with traffic running on the freeway below to minimize the impacts. Next slide, please. And then cost estimates. So these are big numbers. Admittedly, this is a complex, extremely complex project with potentially many phases. It's significant infrastructure, and at this stage, we did a very conceptual cost estimate based on a level of preliminary engineering that gave us enough confidence that this thing is possible, and we were able to measure the extent of the braided ramps, the cap area, the intervals of columns, the type of reinforced concrete superstructure that forms the deck. And with our cost consulting team, we came up with a most likely cost, which is highlighted there in orange, and then an upper and a lower bound, because there's always going to be a tolerance, a high and a low end on an estimate at this level of design. But what dropped out is that for phase one, that piece of cap that's about 800 or 900 linear feet between Brand and Central, the park itself, the structure, the amenities that go in it, the landscaping, everything else, is about $535 million. The associated highway improvements are mainly associated with the braided ramp structures, which we think are needed from both a safety and a traffic flow perspective, amount to about $110 or $109 million. So these are high level numbers. They need more work. And then we took the phase one detail that we built up and we looked at the cost per square foot and attributed that to future phases all the way out to Glendale Avenue to give an ultimate total cap cost if the entire corridor here was built as a cap, and those numbers on the right hand side. But really want to focus the audience here to the phase one numbers as summarized in the top of this slide. And with that, I think I'm going to hand back to Bradley to sum up with some of the alternate analyses that were performed.
Thank you, Tony. Actually, what I'd like to do is go back to this image really quick. As you saw in the prior slide, it is a very ambitious project. It is a significant undertaking from a cost and construction and time perspective. There may be some additional alternatives that we could consider for future direction that could still lead us to potentially this project, but could maybe get us a nearer term improvement. Also with probably an extensive timeline as well, but not nearly as ambitious as the Cap Park. If you look at this graphic here, just to the right of Brand, you see that orange box that's highlighted. Essentially, part of this work already proposed what could be a modified alternative that could be incorporated, and that's extending the existing bridges. Or existing bridge, rather than just looking at capping the whole thing and understanding that would take time and a lot of money, we could look at extending the bridges to create some green space, some improved pedestrian and cyclist connections, or even transit facilities, as they've highlighted. And part of this alternative, they were originally looking at BRT and streetcar having shared the same street, and then on that east side of Brand, there could be a transit stop that was justification to kind of extend that bridge. So I go to this example here. This is 5th Street in Atlanta, Georgia. This is a bridge that spans over the downtown connector. This is a freeway that at certain points reaches up to 18 lanes wide. This connects the Georgia Institute of Technology campus to Midtown. And this was really kind of a dead area for a long time. The campus was very disconnected from the city. The other side of the freeway was rather undeveloped at that point in time. And they had considered many ambitious alternatives as well. What they ultimately settled on was really an enhanced bridge. They took the existing structure, expanded that outward. They created kind of grass and green space areas, trees, vegetation that is built into planters. They did modify lanes here. That's not something we're necessarily proposing to do today. This is something that would need a more extensive study to understand what would be feasible. But this is something that very well could occur on, say, Central. Knowing that the BRT is there, this could create a stop at that location. It could, most importantly, improve the pedestrian and cyclist experience across the freeway. As noted, the Cat Park is very ambitious, but staff does believe that there does need to be some level of improvement in order to encourage pedestrians to walk across this bridge, to cycle across the existing bridge that's there. We were just talking earlier about safety. Being able to do these kind of improvements can make people feel more comfortable to do that, and reconnecting those two sides of the city. So in this case, they actually have trolley stops. They have a wider sidewalk. They have these kind of planted areas where on various days of the week there can be activities going on there. There could be social gatherings. More importantly, what it did is it stitched across the freeway and reconnected the community. And now, rather than people typically driving between these two locations, they either run trolleys or they walk or they cycle. There's also a bicycle lane off to the side on this. This could be a more viable and feasible alternative to consider. This is a street level view of it. You can see the raised planters that are there. In fact, if you've never been here before and you were to walk across this location, you very well may not even realize that there are 18 lanes of traffic that are running underneath this. The walls, the planting, everything is providing sound insulation. It's providing visibility, kind of barriers so you don't even see the freeway. This could be a very viable alternative for us to begin to consider if the Cat Park is too much. But it also doesn't mean that we have to throw out the work that we have done for the Cat Park in order to pursue a strategy such as this. This would be something that we would pursue outside funding for, and study this very much in the same spirit, and then incorporate that as part of the Cat Park study that we have already done. So ultimately what we're looking for is direction from council. Do you wish for us to go and identify funding opportunities to go to the next phases of either the Cat Park proposal as you see it today, to consider additional alternatives such as the one that's presented there? Does council want us to approach Caltrans to have discussions around those braided ramps, around those improvements? And then staff would pursue and identify opportunities for funding. And that's important to note here. We're not asking for funding for any additional work on this. That concludes the presentation, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Bradley and Tony. Thank you very much. Quite a report, I have to say, quite a report. Okay, so do we have any phone calls on this at this point?
Madam Mayor, yes, we do. We have one caller.
Okay, let's hear that caller and then we'll get to council.
Mara Baigulova. Mara, you're live. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, City Council, Mayor. Thank you for letting me speak. And I am a member of the Save Glendale Riverside Rancho. And as a resident, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay. As a resident of the Riverside Rancho area and as an equestrian, and I'm a member, of course, of the Rancho the group, the status of 1900 Riverside Drive.
Mara,
I think this is the wrong agenda item.
this is item 8D. Do you want to hold on for oral communications?
It's whatever you wish.
Okay, thank you. Hold on.
Okay, so thank you. We'll go to my colleagues for questions. I'm sure you have some.
Yeah, I have, at least I can start off with two questions before we get
Go
into
ahead.
comments.
Go ahead.
So Bradley, I know I saw in the report, there was a figure of what, 530 million estimated for the cap. That would be just the brand, the central to brand segment, right? Phase
Correct,
one.
phase one.
What's the, best estimate you have right now if we were to just do that alternative you suggested, like just over central or just over brand, just improving those overpasses?
That would be a pretty wide range at this point. It would depend on what we would prioritize and factor into it. But depending on, or looking at other projects that have done something of that scale, it can be anywhere between 40, 80, $100 million in that range. It all depends on how much is going in there, how much of the existing structure would actually need to be enhanced or rebuilt.
Okay, and then the idea is we could do that, whatever it is, 40, 80, 100, whatever it would cost. And then if we were to eventually expand for that whole phase one, that work would not have to be removed. I mean, that could be part of what ends up being a Fuller Cap Park, right?
Very likely, yes.
Okay. And then, just one other related question is, so on that alternative, looking at, you mentioned Central and Brand as both possibilities, but I think in the briefing you said there were reasons why Central is preferable. Can you maybe elaborate on how we would think about one versus the other? What are the benefits and drawbacks?
Central would probably be the preferable location, one, because of BRT. That is coming with certainty. That's a great opportunity to maybe incorporate a stop over that bridge. But also, if we are going to pursue strategies such as the braided ramps, that connects at Central as well, and that kind of fits into a very much of a dig once philosophy. We're already in there doing work for the ramps, might as well get in there and do work for the bridge as well. So I think that presents the best opportunity, especially when it comes to transit.
Okay. I have comments, but I'll maybe let everybody ask questions first.
Okay. Can I have council on screen, please, instead of the,
Sure.
thank you. Thank you. Anyone have questions? Councilmember Najarian?
I have, Madam Mayor.
Agajanian, go ahead.
So the cost is, like phase one is, the cost on the phase one is 531 million, or freeway improvement is $1 billion, more than $1 billion. So can you tell me how we can get this money? I mean, I can't imagine where we're gonna get this money. I mean, who's gonna come up with such a money just to give it to Glendale, let's say? I mean, what's the plan? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
That would still need to be developed. We would need to identify outside funding sources. If you look at other projects such as this around the country, that can come in a variety of different fashions: federal support, state support. In some cases, they even receive private funding in order to construct that. And some of that was highlighted as part of the vision plan, where some of those sources could come from. The objective here was to be able to start getting a number that we could then strategize around. So where the funding would come from would be determined.
But did Glendale in the past received such monies? I mean, similar monies in that range of 500 million or $1 billion? Do we have a history of getting such a money from somewhere?
For projects such as this, I would say no. And again, we would need to look at what other cities have been able to accomplish. Many cities have been able to fund this through federal and state funding.
I mean, our size city, or we are talking about Los Angeles, I am sure they get more than that.
No, there are cities around this size that have received funding for these kind of projects, in many cases even smaller. Some that I can think of are Denver, Colorado, or not Denver, but a suburb of Denver built a nature crossing that was approximately $110 million. They had achieved federal funding. Very similar kind of construction, Lid Park that went over the freeway.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Madam Mayor?
Yes,
If I could,
Councilmember Najarian.
if I could perhaps help answer Councilmember Agajanian's question. In my recent memory, the largest funding that we received for an infrastructure project of this nature was, I believe it was $30 to $40 million for the Fairmont flyover, which goes over San Fernando Road into the GC3 campus. And that did have a safety component in it as well. So my question, I mean, a few councils ago, the city manager was scolded for bringing up the Space 134 project.
Yeah.
Not this city manager, the
Yes.
sitting city manager. Just because the funding required was so factors out of the realm of possible funding. But not to let a good project die, it's back before us. And I think if the request is to task staff to find out where funding can come from and perhaps scale a project that is in the realm of possible funding, I'm all for it. I think if any funding comes through, it's going to be on the smaller side. It's certainly not going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's certainly not going to be 10 figures. It's not going to be in the billions. It's not going to be in the 100 millions. It might be in the maybe tens of millions. I mean, imagine that. Even saying that is incredible. But I think if we start in that manner, I mean, a lot of work has been done, and this is trying to take off. So, staff, if you want to try and find out what possible funding sources are, whether it's public-private partnerships. I mean, you guys went and visited Texas how many years ago? Was that this council or?
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about that, but possible public-private partnerships. I mean, we're clearly not going to, don't look at the last column, whatever anyone does. The one with $2.5 billion, $3.6 billion, $2 billion. Let's look more towards the middle, and I think the concept would be something closer to the last thing that you showed us, Bradley. The slightly extended area adjacent to maybe Central. At the same time, clean up some of the on-ramps and off-ramps. Even the braided on-ramp idea, I think, is going to be very expensive, but perhaps we have better ways to spend that money to solve the traffic congestion issue. But I just want to, I'm going along with this. I was one of the council members that scolded the city manager 5 years ago, but, let's not pour cold water on this. It's an idea, it's a concept, and unless you dream, it could never become a reality. So go ahead, try and find some money. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, but it doesn't hurt to look for funding. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Najarian. Councilmember Kasakian?
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor. For as long as I've lived in Glendale, there's always been this phrase, above the freeway or below the freeway. And I was not around when the freeway was built, but obviously the construction of the 134 freeway, which bisected Glendale, bisected in more ways than just physically. There are certain attitudes and biases, as well as other considerations about what it means to live above or below the 134. This project, when it was first suggested, and I remember hearing about it when I was still the city clerk, was and still is an ambitious project. But I think it's a project that, if it's actually realized, can do a lot of good for this community. Could connect it in ways more than just physically, but it can also provide for a great green space in a part of the city where we're very much lacking in that. Having said that, there's some things about this, just looking at those numbers and all the commas and zeros is very, very sobering. And given that we sit up here trying to figure out how we can do things with the limited resources that we have, it's very difficult to commit to this type of project. I do have certain, we have CAP projects nearby, so I have a couple of questions I'd like staff to come back with. One of which is what the cost of constructing the CAP park in La Cañada was when that was built, adjusted to inflation. If it was to be built today, what the cost was then, what it would be today if it was to be built. As well as, I think there's a CAP it's not a cap park, but it's a cap intramural field or a practice field at UCLA on campus. It's one I walked by every day as a student, right above the underpass by parking lot number 8, where the football team practices. I'm also curious to know when the last cap park project was built in California, specifically California. I'd like to know if there was one built anywhere in the state. What went into that? I do believe that if this is worth doing, it's worth doing right. The schematics or the drawings that you showed of a slightly widened bridge with some space on either side is not something I think would be worth the effort. At a certain point, we have to either commit ourselves to something that is actually decent and provides something of value to the community, or we shouldn't do it at all because we have limited resources, both in terms of staff, time, and money. I do want to urge you all to, I will support staff's efforts to explore where they can get funding from. And given that we just passed over $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill that was signed by the president, I would make this something that we would try to ask for some funding and see if it's something that can be done. And there's many reasons why it is I think, a good project in terms of enhancing the quality of life, providing a lot of greenery that could help diminish the amount of carbon dioxide in the downtown area as it's produced, et cetera, et cetera. So those are my thoughts and my comments. I know that, what did you call this, a moonshot or an Apollo project or something of that sort? There was some space analogy. But I think that, you know, let's move forward. Let's move forward cautiously, and let's see how we can get this done, if at all. And I am trying to be a realist here. I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime, but it's something that future generations would deserve.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Kasakian.
Madam
Well,
Mayor?
I was on council at the time this was suggested. This idea was brought up, this moonshot, and it was called a moonshot. So in order to kind of brief council on what we were, what it was like, I did accompany staff to Dallas, to Clyde Warren Park, and it was extraordinary. It was a beautiful green space, restaurant, playgrounds. I think they told us it drew like 1 million people in like a week or less. They did have transportation going by just as is planned for our Space 134 cap. So when we returned from that trip, and everyone was very excited about the possibility of this freeway cap, we started outreach in the community and asking what the residents would like to see it on this cap park. What should it be? What should be there? Well, the enthusiasm was beyond. I mean, our residents were so excited. They're still asking me. I still have people ask me, where are we with Space 134? What happened to the freeway cap park? We would have outreach meetings, and there would be a lot of people there. Unlike when we have the pedestrian outreach clinics or workshops or one evening, or if we have the, what was the last one on the BRT, how many people were there? With the outreach for this Space 134 was amazing. The rooms would be full. So the enthusiasm was there, and I think it's still there. Dallas did theirs with the 3 Ps, of course. So they did a private, public, and of course in Dallas they had someone that was very wealthy and gave them a huge boost in funding, probably an oil man or a rancher or something. But they were lucky to have that. In our city, in Glendale, Kiwanis immediately wanted to be in on the project. They wanted to sponsor a kids' playground on the cap park. The Dominican Republic was right there, and they had ideas on on the an amphitheater and flags. And I mean, I'm telling you, the enthusiasm was beyond, just beyond. And it is scary. The amount of money is very scary. And my question was, you know, comparing the Arroyo Verdugo Wash project and Space 134 project, and what those two, the cost was for the two of them. And the thing about it is I was told, and it's true, that they're both such big projects that they're, hold on, I have to plug in my computer, that they're, you know, they're projects that are going to take a lot of years. And so it's not like, you know, we have to have all this money at once. I think right now, I think that we should explore funding. I do like that idea of expanding that bridge on Central to begin with. And it looked to me like even in the one I think you showed from Atlanta, there was green space on either side. And if we did something like that, we could have maybe mini parks there, or, some sort of an inactive or a passive park there. So I am for moving forward on this project. Maybe not the whole $500 million project right now, but I think we should, we've spent a lot of money so far on this fantastic report that we just received. And so I would be in favor of moving forward. For connectivity in our community, that was the main reason that we were looking at this project. So I think it has a lot of merit. And so I would say let's move forward with more investigative research on funding and looking at the expanding the bridge. But as has been said, let's do it in moderation, slow steps, one step at a time. So those are my comments for now.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Agajanian?
as I guess everybody knows, yesterday President Biden signed $110 billion in roads and bridges, and part of that $1.2 billion infrastructure bill. So unless we can tap to that or somehow connect to this money, I don't see any future on this. But however, I would like to see something has been done. And especially I like on page 18, I don't know if we can put page 18 on the screen, if it's possible, of the report. I mean, this is, at least we can come up with something like this, what it's showing on the picture, which I think a good idea. But however, since there is money for roads and bridges, maybe we go along with the ambitious idea of connecting from Central to Glendale Avenue and make giant park and, I don't know, whatever it's necessary to do. With that, I just want to move the item based on it. Alternative one.
Yeah, I still have my comments.
Councilmember Broadman has been
Yeah.
holding back. So go ahead, Councilmember
Yeah,
Broadman.
so could you, Bradley, could you put that slide back up where you're seeking direction?
What
It
page?
was, I think it was the last one anyway. Just want to make sure I'm addressing everything. Okay. Cat Park Free Revenue. Okay. So, yeah, sorry, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a. Anyways, starting with, I thought it was interesting what Councilmember Najarian was saying about scolding the then city manager for bringing up the project, because I remember scolding council on Metro money. It wasn't even going to be our money, right? Metro was going to pay for the study, and we turned it down. But anyway, I was disappointed then, and so I support us, looking to further develop some of these concepts and explore funding. I would love to see us work on this phase one idea between Brandon Central, but in the meantime, I do like your idea, Bradley, of looking at those freeway overpass sections, because I think, as long as that can be incorporated into that phase one, ultimately, I think that would add a lot of value. I know just, riding a bike between North and South Glendale, there is that going over the freeway is a really unpleasant part of the experience. And if there were, there was a nice access to get across the 134, that'd be great. So I would like to see us do that. I think this is a lot of money, who knows, but we have to think big. We're Glendale. Don't sell ourselves short, right? We have to maybe dream a little bit. And we'll see what gets done. On the freeway improvements, I have a lot of concerns about those. Partly the dollar amount, 110 million, I would much rather see us use that on creating some cap park space. But I also worry that treatments like that run the risk of actually speeding up traffic, and those approaches to the freeway on our roads as people approach the on-ramps are very dangerous, because people get into freeway mindset. They're ready to get on the freeway and they start going really fast. So I am concerned. I would want to make sure that anything we do as far as, these on and off ramps, we make sure, number one, that it doesn't speed up traffic. It doesn't create increased speeds, which translate to more danger of pedestrian accidents and deaths. And I know, Bradley, you showed that chart that depending on the speed that the car is going, the chance of surviving a pedestrian accident goes down exponentially. So I would certainly not want us to do anything that would cause faster moving traffic getting on or off the freeways. I mean, I'm less concerned about on the freeway itself, but getting on and off, or the approaches to the freeway, I would want to be really careful there. And I would also want to look at VMT. I mean, this analysis was LOS, and I know at the time, I guess that's what we used. It's out of date. We should be looking to make sure that we are not increasing vehicle miles traveled in anything like this that we do. So I do have some reservations about it. Maybe I don't commute every day, so I'm not on and off the freeway all the time, but I have experiences those crossovers. And in a way, it's because they're a little hairy, they make you slow down, and they make you drive more carefully. So there is some benefit to that. So I don't know. I'll just say that I'm skeptical on that. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Madam Mayor, excuse me.
Thank you. Yes,
Madam-
Councilmember Agajanian?
I just have a question from Bradley or staff. We went through this in 2018. I mean, about having the bridge over the freeway. So what has changed since 2018? I remember we did this exercise one more time before. So what has changed from that time to today that this came again to us?
The first portion of the work was really a visioning study. This was trying to understand the project on a more technical level, what it would take from an engineering perspective, cost perspective, impacts to parking, traffic, things of that nature. But we also had to execute certain existing condition studies to meet Caltrans requirements. Some of that ended up including us looking at these potential for braided ramps. So this really went from kind of a visioning stage to more of a feasibility and constructability analysis. From here, we would start looking at it from an environmental perspective. Those would be some of the next stages.
All right, thank you. So I would like to move it, Ms.
We have, this is a motion to note and file that Mr. Calvert and City Manager Galani, you wanted direction from council. Have you enough information from us?
if I can summarize enough, and if this is accurate, if not, please correct me, but to continue moving forward with what we have now, consider any additional alternatives and identify the funding, potential funding sources to complete this. The outstanding question I would have is, should we engage with Caltrans to discuss the braided ramps and those improvements?
I would suggest that you do. I mean, the sooner you can try and get a hold of Caltrans, the better, given how difficult sometimes it can be.
I mean,
I agree with that. Councilmember Najarian, how do you feel about that? And Agajanian?
Alternative one isn't says everything. The way it has been offered, alternative one, it says note and file and provide comments on the final draft space 134 freeway ramps, preliminary engineering. City Council may also direct staff to pursue other further opportunities. I think you said it in the first sentence, that to go ahead and do more about preliminary engineering, right?
Are you in
Correct, we
favor
were
of
just
them
looking for a
doing
little more
that,
detail.
Councilmember Najarian, are you in favor of the ramp study with Caltrans?
I mean, to speak to Caltrans, yes, but I think at some point we're going to have to make a cost-benefit analysis. But talk is okay.
Okay. Are you good with that, Bradley? Mr. Calvert?
Yes, I think that's clear direction.
And I'm not
Okay,
opposed
then-
to that, but, the caveats that I mentioned, I hope you can bring into that conversation.
Right. He will. He will. Okay, so we need a motion to note and file.
Yeah.
And Councilmember Agajanian, you made that motion?
Yes.
A
And
second.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Devine.
Yes. Thank you all. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, Human Resources regarding Memorandum of Understanding MOU between the City of Glendale and Glendale Firefighters Association. One resolution approving and adopting the MOU commencing July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. Two, resolution providing for the establishment of classification titles and compensation for employees covered by the Glendale Firefighters Association. Madam Mayor, I do have two callers on the line for this item.
Okay, let's hear the callers first before we get to a, well, wait, let's have Mr. Galanian. Do you have Mr.
Mr. Doyle is here, Mayor.
Yes, thank you.
Ready to
I
give a
couldn't-
report.
Madam
Sorry,
Mayor,
Matt, I was drawing a blank there, but let's have him give the report and then we'll hear from the callers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
if I may, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, after 5 months of negotiations between the city's negotiating team and the GFFA board and their negotiating team, we are pleased to present to you this item. That's negotiation culminated in a 3-year memorandum of understanding. And these things are never easy. And I just wanted to express my gratitude to my team, my negotiating team, as well as the GFFA board. Some of those members are present here. You probably can't see them, Madam Mayor, in the chamber. And I just wanted to extend my thank you for all their efforts in reaching to this point. With that, Matt Doyle,
Likewise, I'm sure.
HR Director, will provide more detail on what took place and what the MOU entails. Thank you. Matt?
Okay,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Galanian. Mayor Devine, members of council, this item is a resolution approving a 3-year memorandum of understanding between the City of Glendale and the Glendale Firefighters Association for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. The GFFA represents approximately 160 rank-and-file fire-sworn professionals at the ranks of firefighter, fire engineer, and fire captain, as well as their associated paramedic ranks. This MOU is the culmination of approximately 5 months of negotiation between the city and GFFA. There were a lot of issues raised over the course of these negotiations, but I think the primary concerns are related to remaining competitive as far as pay and benefits. As the report indicates, the hiring and retaining skilled firefighters, particularly paramedics, is a really competitive challenge right now, particularly in the state of California with all the wildfires and the high population. The staff report indicates that we are, in fact, competing against all of the labor market cities, as well as LA City, LA County, and CAL FIRE for all the best firefighter candidates. We do believe we have an outstanding group of individuals within our fire department, and we obviously want to keep them here and continue to attract and retain and be able to recruit the best available candidates into the future. This 3-year MOU is pretty straightforward, with the costs deferred to the second and third years of the contract through a combination of very modest cost of living adjustments as well as longevity pay for our more senior firefighters. The first year contains no salary adjustments, thus there are no costs in the first year. The second year has a 1% across the board salary adjustment, as well as a 2% adjustment for those with 20 years or more of service. The third year provides a 2% cost of living adjustment and an additional 6% for those with the 20 plus years of service and 4% for those with 10 or more years of service. The longevity pay does help us retain longer serving employees and does apply and does not apply across the board, so it does rein in the costs to some degree. The only other salary related item in this MOU is a 2% deferred compensation 401A type of contribution in the third year of the contract for our newer employees under the PEPRA retirement formula, which is a lower retirement benefit than the more senior employees receive. This MOU was adopted by the GFFA membership with approximately 84% of the vote, and staff does recommend that the City Council adopt this MOU resolution as well. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. And as Mr. Galanian did say, we do have representation from the GFFA here tonight. I know the president, firefighter Steve Keys, is here, as well as Vice President Ara Zakarian and other members of their team. We also have Chief Lanzas available remotely, and I believe Battalion Chief Brooks is here as well. So, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Doyle, let's hear the phone calls, please.
Ms. Valentine, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, Ms. Valentine.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Boy, did I misunderstand that whole 8E. Mr. Doyle gets the credit for MOU. So I thought we had the Glendale Fire Department, and they were all paid employees. So this is now about Glendale Firefighters Association. They're not paid. That you're going to establish payment for them? Are they going to become paid employees? I'm so confused. We have two different agencies. I don't. East Glendale loves 25 and 23. I have to tell you, they love those fire stations, and they never abandoned them. And something good happened. They were able to put the first hump, soft hump, at 3303 East Chevy Chase Drive. Now let's get those humps down on the Miracle Mile of Chevy Chase, the bottom mile. It worked. I wanted to ask how many employees would it be. He said 100. So I'm going to stay out of it. I don't understand any of it. If they had not been paid, so now they will become the employees of Glendale. Mr. Doyle, have you lost all your employees? Those two buildings are all empty? I thought everybody loves working for Glendale. Last time you suggested 60 commissioners to become employed by the Glendale city. And then, of course, you have to make new commissioners. Anyway, this is my ranting. I'm sorry. You're doing a good job tonight. You're making good decisions. I'm sorry to make you work hard. So, okay, I wouldn't pay if they are volunteers. I thought when they call me for donation, they say that they are a volunteer. So, but no, they do need to get paid if they're trained and they're certified and they went to school. No, they have to be paid. Okay, thank you.
I think you should Mr. Doyle, I think you should clear that up for Ms. Valentine, that we are paying our firefighters and they are employees. They are not volunteers.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, we have a paid fire department. There are some volunteer departments out there, but ours are compensated.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I think
Councilmember Agajani.
I guess there was confusion when they called volunteers for firefighters. That's a company trying to collect money, and I can't say they spent for firefighters. They spent for themselves. You know that there are certain companies they call and collect money for firefighters, for others, but those are private companies. They are doing that, and it has nothing to do with our firefighters. So just for clarification that Ms. Valentine, to separate, these are paid employees. Firefighters are paid employees, and those who are calling to collect donation, so maybe, I don't know if you want to pay them anything, has nothing to do with our employees, just for clarification.
Thank you. Do we have any more phone calls? We have another phone call?
Yes, I do have one more caller, Madam Mayor.
Okay, please.
Herbert Milano, you have 3 minutes. Herbert, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Mayor Devine, members of the City Council, my name is Herbert Milano. I have a couple of comments and a question. The first one is that I think that for clarity's purposes, when you're preparing an agenda, that the summary of the increases be put right up front, instead of being optional disclosure afterwards. 4% additional pay, called longevity pay after 10 years, and an 8% additional pay after 20 years of service. So we have definitive and clear pay increases coming up in the next 3 years. All right. So I was wondering how they came up with this longevity pay. I know it was copied after the police department basically came up with this terminology. But I'm really concerned if you don't know what the actual total compensation is as displayed in Transparent California website. I'm looking at Transparent California, and it shows a fire engineer paramedic annual salary, total compensation of $359,000. And there are many other members of the fire department that are making over $350,000 a year. If you don't know those numbers, I don't think you can approve this MOU. The impact of the salaries and the total compensation is an important factor, and probably one of the most important ones that you have before the public. And I think it merits that we have significant transparency. Some of these people are getting paid more than a two-star general in the United States military, you know, and they supervise tens of thousands of people each. I would like to know, why is it that this item is exempt from the campaign disclosure requirement? And even if it is exempt, why shouldn't the public know the extent and the effort of the Glendale Firefighters Association involvement in city elections? I believe that without their support and active participation in the elections, many council members could not get elected. And it is my belief that the MOU is a clear representation of that leverage, of the influence and the participation in the elections by the Glendale Firefighters Association, and the incredible salaries that they're being paid. The total compensation is astronomical, and the public should know. Thank you.
Thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the last election, which I was a part of, there were candidates that did not win that had firefighters endorsements, our Glendale Firefighter Association endorsements. So I don't know that Mr. Milano is completely correct on that one. Any other comments on what he said, Mr. Doyle?
Madam Mayor, no,
Okay.
I think Mr. Milano's position is clear on this. And, you know, when he references Transparent California does include not just salaries, but things like overtime and all the associated benefits costs. And it does appear to be quite high in some respects. Not necessarily a fair reflection of what the take-home compensation is for our city employees in general. Other than that, I would say, again, this group, our efforts are to maintain a competitive pay and benefits situation. And if you look at the history of this bargaining unit, not just over the past 5 years, but over the past 10 years or even 15 years, they've been quite reasonable in working with the city through not only the COVID situation of the past year and a half, but all the way back to the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, where the staff report addresses how they deferred scheduled raises multiple times and took nothing many years going forward, and also in so doing increased the cost sharing of what they pay into the employer share of CalPERS. Right now, they're the highest of any group in the city. 4.5% of their salaries go directly to the employer share of CalPERS, in addition to the full 9% of the employee share that they pay. So I think, we're dealing with a group that has been not only outstanding as far as their overall performance, but quite reasonable, quite accommodating in working with the city through some difficult times.
Thank you. Thank you. Comments from my colleagues?
Madam Mayor?
That is Councilmember Najarian.
Right. So I would like to thank, I also would like to thank Matt Doyle and his negotiating team, as well as the Firefighters Association for coming to terms. You play a very important role in making Glendale what it is today. Our public safety, both police and fire, are the cornerstone, I think, to our quality of life. It's a cornerstone to our peace of mind. And you have jobs that you do, even though most of the calls are medical. There are the fires and train crashes and chemical spills, brush fires, structure fires, house fires, rescues that you perform. It's a tough job, and we're very glad to have men and women like you protecting the residents of Glendale. So I'm very happy. You have had a history of giving up pay raises to the city. So I'm not sure everyone knows that. The Great Recession of 2009, is that the one you're referring to? 2009, 2010. You guys went goose eggs for several years, many years in a row, which you didn't have to do. You were entitled to pay raises, but you saw the situation that the city was in, and you stepped up to the plate and you partnered with us. So I'm very happy that we're coming to terms with you and your fine group of employees.
Right. And I agree. And, we have residents calling on us to speed up negotiations on different items that come before us. And with our own fire department, it took 5 months of negotiations. So negotiations are not always easy, and it's a give and take procedure. We have a first-class fire department for a reason, and that's because we have good men and women that are part of that department. And I know that all of our residents are proud of them and happy that they're here to keep us safe. And getting us through COVID and all of the programs that you initiated, and we all thank you and we all appreciate you. So I will entertain a motion for this item.
I'll move the item.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman?
Yes.
Kasakian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
And Mayor Devine.
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is 8F, Management Services regarding preservation of the Tri-City communities of Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena within the County Supervisorial District 5 during the 2021 redistricting process. One, motion to authorize the mayor to sign a letter to the Los Angeles County Citizens Redistricting Commission to advocate for the preservation of the Tri-City communities in one supervisorial district for Los Angeles County.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian?
Yes, Mayor Devine, member City Council, we're just going to go over to Christine Powers, our Senior Executive Analyst, who's going to provide you with a brief presentation on this item and the four proposed maps that the county is proposing.
Good evening, Mayor Devine, council members. As you know, with the decennial census comes the redistricting process, which many government entities are currently engaged in. And the Los Angeles County Redistricting Commission is currently overseeing the redistricting process for the 5 supervisorial districts for the County of Los Angeles. Currently, the Tri-City communities of Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena share County Supervisorial District 5, which is overseen by Supervisor Catherine Barker. The Tri-City communities share similar historical, cultural, and economic backgrounds, and we partner on numerous regional efforts. Most notably of these is the Burbank Glendale Pasadena Airport Authority, which is a separate government agency created under a joint powers agreement between the 3 cities for the sole purpose of owning and operating the Hollywood Burbank Airport. The Tri-Cities are also closely connected by economic development initiatives, participate in the Arroyo Verdugo Communities Joint Powers Authority, coordinate on regional fire and police efforts, and are currently working jointly to complete a transit fleet electrification study. So just last month at the October 28th special meeting, the Redistricting Commission chose 4 draft map options to receive further public input and discussion. The fall public hearings began this month, and the commission is soliciting community input regarding the redistricting plan options, and this process must be completed by December 15th. At the time that this report was drafted, as City Manager Golania noted, there were 4 draft maps that the commission was seeking public input on. And just this evening, as I was sitting in the back of council chambers, I saw the county commission sent out their email about tomorrow night's meeting, and they seem to have made changes to all 4 draft maps and have added 2 more maps for consideration. So just so you know, that the 4 draft maps don't change as far as the city of Glendale, and I'll go through them. So I'll go through those, and in addition, the 2 new maps. So option A that is presented does maintain the Tri-Cities in 1 supervisorial district. Option B bisects Glendale into 2 supervisorial districts. Glendale south of the 134 freeway would become part of District 3 in a different supervisorial district than Burbank, Pasadena, and the northern half of Glendale, which would all remain in District 5. Option C carves Burbank out of the supervisorial district and places it into a different district. Option D maintains the Tri-Cities in 1 supervisorial district. And for the 2 new draft maps, option E carves Glendale and Pasadena and the remainder of the San Gabriel Valley out of District 5 and places them into District 3, and Burbank remains in District 5. And option F maintains the Tri-Cities in 1 supervisorial district. So at this time, staff is seeking council's authorization for the mayor to sign a letter on behalf of the city council to the LA County Citizens Redistricting Commission, advocating for the preservation of the Tri-City communities of Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena to stay within District 5 for the 2021 redistricting process. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Comments, questions?
Yes, Mayor Devine, I have a question.
Councilmember Brotman.
Yeah, could you repeat option E? That wasn't clear on that.
Sure. So option E, Councilmember Brotman, carves Glendale and Pasadena and the remainder of the San Gabriel Valley and places them into District 3, which goes further west. And so Burbank remains in District 5.
Okay, so Glendale, Pasadena, and
the remainder of the San Gabriel Valley.
Okay.
But so Glendale and Pasadena would stay together and shift into District 3, and Burbank would remain in District 5.
okay.
I had the previous maps set ready to go on Chrome. It would take me a minute, but I can pull up the other
No,
maps
that's-
if you want to look at them.
The other question was on option C, where Burbank gets carved out. So what gets added back in place of Burbank? I mean, so we would still be with Pasadena in option C. Burbank would come out, what would come in?
Let me look at it.
Okay. I mean, generally, I mean, I'm fine with the recommendation. I'm just, trying to understand a little bit more.
To be honest with you, it doesn't look like there's too much significant change. The border might drop a little bit south towards the San Gabriel Valley as you go east, but it's not, the line doesn't look significantly different from what it is right now along that way.
Ms. Powers, who's the supervisor in District 3 right now?
District
Do you know?
3 is, I believe it's Sheila Kuehl right now.
No, but she's not running again, right? It's
Right.
gonna be a new one. Any other comments?
Yeah, Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Agajanian.
Also, I was hoping that in the letter we mentioned that we, Glendale, Pasadena, and Burbank, they own, the airport. And separating us also may cause problems. I do not know a specific problem, but since we are together, own the airport and running the airport, so to separate this three city from another city, I think eventually will cause some sort of problem. Maybe we want to mention in the letter also that will is another reason to keep these three cities together. That's my comment. If there is, and I would like to move the item when I have the chance.
I will
Any
note
other
that
comments? Is there a second? And I have to say that the airport authority, I will be suggesting that we send a letter as well if we haven't already done that. Okay.
Madam
Do I
Mayor,
have a second to
Madam
this
Mayor,
motion?
before we move on, I do have a caller for this item.
Okay, let's hear it. Thank you.
Miss Valentine, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good evening. It's 8:16. Yeah, Tri-City, wonderful. My concern is about the Eagle Rock. The Eagle Rock, not a real eagle, but it's an eagle. Eagle Rock City is a forgotten city by L.A. Mayor, Mr. I think his name is Angelino. And maybe we can include Tri-City plus Eagle Rock somehow. Nobody's mentioning Eagle Rock. For some reason, I think Eagle Rock is closer to Glendale than L.A. They just have written it off somehow. So please keep a close eye. Follow the developments in L.A. on this redistricting situation. And then I have one favor to ask. Glendale Water and Power needs to send a letter to each resident with their bill about the building of this gas plant.
Ms. Valentine, that's not part of this agenda item. I'm sorry, I have to cut you off on
Okay,
that
thank
one.
you.
You're
I will
welcome. You're welcome.
speak about the hotel, though. That will be my last one. Thank you.
All righty. Okay, I have a motion on the floor for this item. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
The letter? I'm sorry?
I'll second the item.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman?
Yes.
Kasakian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
And Mayor Devine.
Yes. Thank you. And our next item is a public hearing, so would you please read the item?
998, Community Development regarding extension of interim urgency ordinance number 5977, prohibiting issuance of entitlement and/or permits for hotels in downtown specific plan area of the city. Introduction of ordinance extending for an additional 10 months and 15 days. Interim urgency ordinance number 5977, prohibiting issuance of entitlements and/or permits for hotel development projects in downtown specific plan area.
Okay, I will open the public hearing. Mr. Galanian?
Yes, Mayor Devine, members, City Council, previously, you've had quite an extensive discussion on this item. And on October 19th, adopted an interim urgency ordinance that imposed a 45-day moratorium on new hotels in the downtown specific plan that expires on December 3rd unless extended by council. I'm going to turn it over to Bradley Calvert, Assistant Director of Community Development, who again, I'm pleased to see that has a 2-slide presentation for you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. And you covered my first slide already, so I think we can go through that really quickly. Just a little background. Urgency ordinance was introduced on October 5th, 2021. This is effective for 45 days. Expires December 3rd, 2021, as mentioned. Tonight is to consider an extension of that ordinance for 10 months and 15 days. This would begin on November 30th. During this period, if council does wish to introduce this and it ultimately is adopted, these are the elements that we would be studying during that time frame. This is based on direction from City Council at prior meetings. The main piece there would be to conduct a market study, essentially answering the question, is there remaining demand for hotels in the downtown specific plan? The second would be looking at the necessity of the hotel use incentive. That could modify it, that could be eliminating it. That's something that we'll be looking at and bring alternatives back for council to review. This would also look at considering a conditional use permit. Are there specific conditions that could improve the compatibility of hotel developments if council does wish to allow those to continue in downtown? And then lastly, considering the alternative of prohibiting the use. Does the council wish to see future hotels in the downtown specific plan? These are all the main pieces that we will study during this time frame, during the next 10 months and 45 days, and we'll come back periodically to update council with information and to consider the essentially different alternatives that could develop from these studies. That's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Calvert. Go ahead. Any questions, and then we'll take Ms. Valentine's phone call. Any questions from council? This is introduction only. No questions? Okay, let's phone call.
Mrs. Valentine, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. Thank you. Please, can you make it 2 years? 10 months, that's not enough. That's not enough. This was urgency ordinance. There was a reason, and you need to, we're in pandemic. It has not gone away yet. The city's on lockdown. I cannot get into your door. Public is not participating in anything. I'm not computer literate. I cannot find or read any kind of a material except this agenda. So please, can you make it 2 years, 20 months, and 30 days? 10 months is nothing. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. It's for our safety. For the city is too small. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would someone like to introduce the ordinance? Oh, I have to close the hearing.
Yes.
Yes.
There are no other comments?
Yeah, I'll introduce the ordinance.
Okay, I'll close the hearing, and the ordinance has been introduced. Do we need a vote on this?
No, it's just
No,
introduction.
just introduction. Okay, all right, then it has been introduced. What's the next item?
Madam Mayor, it's number 12, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The city manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report. Alec Barstrasov. Alec, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. My name is Alec Bartrosov, resident of Glendale. Just wanted to say that I'm very discouraged to hear the comments made this evening by council and staff about pedestrian collisions and how we feel we need to respond. I served on the advisory committee for the PED plan while I was serving on the Transportation Commission. I'm also a transportation planner and have been a safety advocate for the last 10 years. And to focus on education really is a missed opportunity. People are not speeding because they don't know what the speed limit is. They're not hitting pedestrians because they don't know they'll hurt or kill somebody. They're not stopping at stop signs because they don't know what it means. They don't know what the stop sign means for them. So we need to stop thinking about asking people nicely to drive safely and to think that that actually works. There's no local data here in Glendale to suggest that our education efforts have resulted in saved lives or reduced collisions. And in fact, they haven't. And that's why we're here today seeing collision after collision with no progress or movement on the PED plan, which was drafted 4 years ago. So education sounds nice. It makes us feel good about ourselves, and we can point to a billboard and banner and say, look, we did something, but it doesn't do anything for us, and it does nothing to implement the pedestrian plan. Chapter 6 of the pedestrian plan, which is titled Moving to Action, talks about a short-term 5-year implementation strategy that is going to cost $27 million. And the word education is in this document once in the 38 pages of this chapter. And $0.00 of that $27 million is dedicated to education. There's also Chapter 7, which is measuring success. It includes a number of goals and indicators that are already out there for you to look at and to deploy the plan. There's a blueprint. We worked on this pedestrian plan. It's been exhaustively surveyed and looked at, and we've already done all the homework that's necessary to determine the next steps to make our streets safer. So I really hope we're not rehashing this story about education and wondering how to address this issue. It's already in front of us. And this plan means nothing unless it is implemented. So I applaud all the work that was done to make this PED plan. I really love the consultant that we hired on it, and it's a solid plan, but it means nothing until we do something. We need to put $27 million in the next 5 years to implement this strategy. And the facts are that continental crosswalks make people more visible. Curb extension slows cars down. Narrowing lane width slows cars down, and adding bike lanes improves safety. These are the public works infrastructure changes that need to happen to make our streets safer. We need to stop asking people nicely to drive safely. It does not work. So please work with our commissions, work with your staff, ask staff for an implementation strategy so we can put this plan into action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bortikoff. I think when we do our budget sessions and look at our Measure S funding, that perhaps this is someplace where we should put some of our funding into this pedestrian plan. I think you make some good points. Thank you very much. Next caller.
Mara Baglova. Mara, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for letting me speak. I'm a member of the Save the Glendale Riverside Rancho, and I'm an equestrian, and I live in the neighborhood of the 1900 Riverside Drive at Silver Spur Stables. I was made aware of the historical status of this property when it was flagged as historical on the City of Glendale online property portal. Early in September of this year, we were requested by the Glendale Historical Society to provide a report on the historical status of this property. So we did provide them with a report that was conducted, months before, and an additional 2018 historical assessment. Both assessments determined that Silver Spur Stables qualified as historical, both locally in Glendale and statewide. So we were informed that a member of the Glendale Historical Commission suggested that the property was to be protected from any demolition or modification due to its historical status. Immediately following, the Glendale property portal, including a red flag at 1900 Riverside Drive designated as historical. About a week and a half ago, the red flag suddenly disappeared. The community is not aware of any public notice of intent for this property. There have not been any plans submitted to the city of permits pulled, so we are concerned over why this designation was removed and who removed it. I also, just for the council to understand, that one of the big problems is horses and dogs together in close proximity. It's very dangerous because it upsets the horses when they hear the barking incessantly of dogs together. And that's very different, even though I experienced just 2 dogs with their owner and not leashed, riding my horse. And I asked him to please leash your dog. And he said, oh, if they get hurt, it's their fault. I said, no, it's not their fault, it's yours. But nonetheless, he did not. And his dog bit at my horse's fetlocks, and the horse kicked him. I fell off, and he got kicked. All because they're not used to dogs being aggressive, and you never know when it is going to happen, when one gets loose or is taken out with their owner. So dogs and horses don't mix real well unless they're very trained around horses from young puppies. But together as a herd of dogs, it's dangerous. So I wanted that to be something that the council was really concerned about. And that was my experience. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mara. Thank you.
Vahe Sarajian, you have 3 minutes. You have 5 minutes, Vahe. Go ahead.
Today, I will continue my discussion on how you, the City Council, has contributed to keeping Glendale white. Even though Glendale is the 4th largest city in the Los Angeles County, its black population is only 1.8%. Cities of Burbank and Pasadena both have black population of 9%. What is happening within the borders of this city, which is only 7 miles away from downtown Los Angeles, make this city so unwelcoming to black residents? Numbers don't lie. We know as an undeniable fact that historically blacks were not welcome and were systematically excluded from the city of Glendale. But what is happening now and who is doing it? At the last meeting, at a previous meeting actually, I told you how some of my neighbors reacting to my hosting black guests at my short-term rental told me I had brought South Central to their neighborhood, and how you sided with these racist people when you voted to ban short-term rentals in the city. Today, I will discuss the racially motivated police service request made at another home in Glendale to point out that the hate incident at my house was not an isolated event. On August 25, 2018, a black family was staying at 1944 Montecito Drive home when a neighbor sent a racist email to the city manager. This neighbor wrote the email to the city manager, Yasmin De Beers, on August 25, 2018, at 5:17 p.m., stating, I quote, "Something more needs to be done on this front. I don't pay high tax bases to listen to loud, vulgar rap music with strangers in my neighborhood. I need action by your department. Burdening me to call the police multiple times a day on my weekends is unfair. You all need to start focusing on these issues for those who pay most taxes but really don't ask much." End quote. According to the police department dispatch records dated August 25, 2018, at 5:49 and 11 seconds, the guest at the house, identified by the record as Mr. Fuller, requested a sergeant. So by 5:45 p.m., these folks had been harassed 3 separate times by the actions of neighbors who claimed not about noise, but about vulgar rap music. Their complaint was not at 11 p.m., rather early afternoon, when people are allowed to listen to music, but I guess not rap music. The next day, Glendale police officer Jackie Nagui, on August 26, 2018, at 2:58 p.m., stated, I quote, "On 8/25/18,
I responded to 1944 Montecito Drive 3 separate times due to reports of a 4:15 party at the location. The first 2 times I responded to the location, it was in the afternoon. The music volume did not appear unreasonable, and the partygoers were in the backyard eating, end quote. She goes on to say she went there a 3rd time and issued a citation to the guests because the music volume had increased. Are Black Americans welcome in Glendale? What are you doing to show them that this is not the city council of the sundown town days? Next week I will discuss a different incident, but I need to send some photos to be posted there. I was wondering if I could email them to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Emily, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead, Emily.
Hello.
Your microphone.
Yes, go ahead. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead, Emily.
Hi, my name is Emily Mirzakhan, and I'm a student at Glendale Community College. I'm the president of the Students for Sustainability Club. And I was just wanting to talk about clean electricity and energy in the future. Young people are going to be experiencing the worsening impacts of climate change. And as we saw in the COP26 meeting, it's young people that are raising their voices and asking the leaders to take strong action. You're preparing to lead in the future, and you're leading now. And we know that you have the responsibility to ensure that Glendale residents and businesses have reliable sources of energy. Please do everything you can to take Glendale and Southern California in the right direction, reducing our fossil fuel use and transitioning us to a sustainable, clean energy and economic future. We need to explore new technologies and new business models. Thank you so much for stepping up to serve in the community and leading Glendale.
Thank you, Emily.
Are you sure you were doing everything we can? Do we have any more
Thank you.
callers? You're
Yes,
welcome.
I have 2 more callers.
Okay, let's hear them.
Herbert Milano, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Mayor Devine, members of the City Council. I'd like to commend the City Council for taking the first steps towards an open discussion of the City Council's priorities, as you had it a week ago last Saturday. These initial steps, I hope, will expand into a full strategic planning retreat. I have a short video on how the City of Austin, Texas executes strategic planning. It's about 4 minutes long. I hope the City Clerk could play the video for the councils and the public. Thank you.
Joint workshop with city executives to jumpstart the new year with strategic planning. The group developed a working draft of citywide outcomes to focus on for the next 3 to 5 years.
Respecting where we've come from and using that information to greatly inform how we move forward, but also not limiting our perspective to what we are capable of. So bringing all of those different pieces together.
The difference that you're trying to make.
And what are the different steps we're taking to get there?
That would take into account the affordability aspect of it.
Gathering everybody's ideas, their input.
That would be directly under here, is as I heard the proposal.
All these perspectives, it's not easy to bring them together and try to synthesize them.
A combination of 90. We're going to use the time exactly as we've just designated.
Into combined thoughts.
It's the creeks that run through our city. We want to preserve and protect them.
That's what we're really dealing with here in Austin, is that we're having congestion.
I think there needs to be more clarification when we talk about poverty.
It gives everyone a very clear line of sight as to what are we aiming for? What are our goals as an organization, as a community?
We have the city council.
You know, it seems to me we could do that for every one of them.
It's about as much reliability in travel time as the length of travel time.
But how do we make sure that we are still seeing that canary in the coal mine?
And the city's executive staff.
There's segments of our community can't access those.
Gathering together.
Specifically housing, to me, that I think is real important.
Is it going to help us get us towards this goal?
To actually see if we can come up with a strategic plan for the city.
Right, what's the way people could actually understand whether this is happening or not? Not just how they feel, but what's sort of the evidence?
Our city itself has not had one for who knows how long, and it's about time we do.
Now that we've had this most recent election,
You cannot measure homelessness with one metric.
it seemed like an appropriate time for this new 10-1 council to rethink, reevaluate, or start all over with a new strategic direction for the city.
I think having some that are brand new, some that have been here just for a couple years, some have been here for many years, having that combination of perspectives is really important and really helpful to this process, because there are individuals that are able to provide some historical insight.
As fast as they're being torn down in our city now, we won't have much built environment to say once there was a proud people that lived here.
In combination with folks that are able to provide a really fresh, new perspective.
We don't want to turn people away because they're poor. What we want is for that person to not be trapped in the bottom quintile of income for the rest of their life.
It's important for the council and to staff to be aligned on what are the real priorities that we need to work on first.
What I want to do is 2 changes to this proposal.
A strategic plan is incredibly important to the citizens, to the council itself, and to the entire workforce.
So we're good? You're good?
Having a strategic plan means that we know how to focus our attention on how we spend our money, what programs we do, where our staff spends its time.
I don't see that captured under what we're talking about.
It's important that that strategic plan reflect what the community's priorities are.
I choose to have a 45-minute commute. I just want to make sure it's 45 minutes every time I get in the car.
Our community has looked at us and said, this is not an affordable place for too many of us to live. This is not a city where we can all move around. As we set our priorities in this city, preserving and protecting the spirit and soul of this city, we need to focus on the priorities that are most important, and that's what this process is about.
Work will continue over the next few months to refine the strategic outcomes. The city is also creating a roadmap for engaging the community and employees in the new initiative.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Milano, for the video.
Madam Mayor, we do have one more caller.
Your microphone's not on?
No, he's not. It's on.
Sorry, Ken?
It's on. Microphone is on.
Okay. Who is it?
Donald McPoland.
Thank you.
Donald McPoland? Can you hear me? You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. The City Council has discussed a number of grandiose projects over the years, and nothing has come to fruition. I think that the number one should be the Verdugo Wash plan, but that has been discussed. It's going to be very costly. But a number of years ago, we hired Mrs. Goldman, and I went to a number of the meetings, and that was about sculptures and murals downtown Glendale and also on Glen Oaks Boulevard. Well, that was time and money wasted. And then there was discussion about upgrading Artsock Plaza. And then again tonight, the Freeway Park. All of these are great. But you're spending a lot of staff time and probably money, and nothing is coming to fruition. Let's concentrate on one at a time and find the money and so forth. So I would think that the one that would be most useful to most of the residents would be the Verdugo Wash as a bikeway, pedestrian way, and so forth. And thank you.
Thank you very much. And that was our last caller.
That was our last caller, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all those that participated in oral communications. What's the next item, please?
Any new business?
Madam Mayor, I have an item.
Okay, Councilmember Kasakian.
I move that the City Council hereby approves and elects to opt into the settlement agreements reached with distributors McKesson Cardinal Health and AmerisourceBergen and with manufacturer Janssen Pharmaceuticals, Inc., a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson relating to the National Multi-District Opioid Litigation, number 2084, as a full participant. City Council hereby appoints the city manager as the city's authorized representative and authorizes the city manager to take all necessary and reasonable actions to effectuate the city's participation in the settlement and sign all necessary agreements, each following the review and approval of the city attorney.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second?
Yes, Councilmember Najarian has seconded it.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman?
Yes.
Kasakian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Mayor Devine?
Yes. And what's next?
Adjournment?
Move to adjourn. Second.
We are adjourned at 8:44. Thank you, gentlemen. Good job tonight.